Okay, all right. So let's get into it. We're here to I think all learn around AI and critical control management or critical risk management. So normally one of my joint venture partners, Ekin, would give this presentation, and he knows a lot more on the AI side of things. But certainly I've done a fair bit from a process perspective and how we can practically apply it and using the brain's trust of Ekin and Jim. So yeah, really keen to see how we can talk about this. And first question, as you know, all of the workshops I do always interactive. No worries, Belinda. So please, let's 30 seconds, throw something in the chat. How are you currently using AI in critical control management, critical risk management, whatever that means to you? Just throw something in the chat for us. Even if you're not using it for anything, then you can also throw that as well. It just helps us understand, well, helps me understand the background of where people are at, and also that. Yeah, interesting, Brad. All right, so what have we got here? Barry, don't use it all. That's all good, mate. Brad, yes. Engaging consultant, wonder who that is. Brenda, don't use it at all and not using it. Okay. What about some other people? Belinda, not using. I guess that's Paul. We are trialing Risk Talk, AI-assisted pre-task assessment tools. That could be interesting. Andrew just started using it to identify critical controls in PHMPs. Gotcha. Interesting. Anyone else got something to add in there? Thank you for those who've already put something in there. Steve A, using the risk investigation, gap analysis, document development. All right. Well on the road, mate. So doing some stuff there. That's cool. I use ChatGPT doing what's critical, how to validate and verify the cryptography through RAM. Awesome. Hang on. Just let someone in and I went forward a slide. Let me go backwards. Thanks, Gary. We talked about, you may have mentioned that on Friday, mate, but it's a little bit hazy now. Awesome. Okay, thank you. So we've got a bit of a spread there. There is no right or wrong. Risk Talk also have a JSA function. Awesome. Thank you. There's no right or wrong. Everyone's at different phases or stages of implementation. I guess the takeaway, if you're not using it now, probably worth starting to dabble in it. And we can talk about what dabbling could look like in this context as well. So if we think about critical risk management or critical control management, which is where CCM, there's a number of different ways that we can use it. And also, we things obviously it's time saving, isn't it? So one way we can save ourselves some time. And potentially, if we do it well, we can also not lose or potentially increase quality. So on the right-hand side there, quick little poll for people. For those that are doing critical risk management activities, and there's a bunch of different things here which are on the right. Is there any of those that is taking your organization a fair degree of time? And you're not, there's no AI involved. If you look at that list, is there one of those that is overrepresented in terms of resource effort? So I'll ask that question, keep an eye on the chat, and then we can see some of those boxes there, those gray boxes there around, how we can use AI. And we'll unpack these a little bit further. I mean, drafting of bow ties, that's an interesting one. I've seen lots of different things, and there's certainly some risk there. Some people on the line might also have seen that. I think, Steve, you might have even mentioned about using it for docs. I imagine just getting the right language or the same terms across a suite of documentation, checking. I'm sure a few people are using it already for quality assurance and checking and maybe governance or integration. And potentially, what are the opportunities? Well, can it generate some things we aren't yet doing that would like to do or we'll never get the chance to do? And if I look at a lot of our clients, Thanks, Andrew. Defining controls, keeping things current, consistent on pitch with legislative compliance. Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Andrew. Um, if I look at this list here, um, yeah, that's a good one, Gary. That's an interesting one. We could talk about. Certainly preparing for bow ties. What our organization used to do, we would do all this manually, and bow tie preparation was a large time requirement because we wanted to get a bow tie created that reflected what the organization currently has in place, um, down to the levels of tactical controls and what's a control versus support activity and monitoring activity and things like that. And also what are aspirational controls that the rest of industry might have, or somewhere else might have. And that really took a lot of time, and AI has really helped us with that. All right, so I mentioned, yeah, I got some joint venture partners here. This isn't a sell or anything like that, but I've been working with these guys around application of AI in the critical control space, and Ekin normally does this. All right. So there's some words here which you can see. So the right way to think about generic AI in critical control management. And we can see some right ways and some wrong ways. So you can read the words. So a quick poll again, which best describes your current? Oh, we've already talked about that. So I've mentioned, for example, now we're using it to draft bow ties, draft performance standards, draft assurance strategies, draft this, draft that. Brad, we unable to use due to cybersecurity at work. However, I use Claude, chat, and co-work agents to assist in the full risk management workflow. Awesome. Thank you, Brad. So absolutely drafting. I mentioned that example for bow ties now to be able to take multiple different sources of information to bring them together into one consolidated view is, for me, game changer. Quality check. So certainly if we can give it the right rules and frameworks. So for example, we use what is a control versus support activity and a verification activity. They each have three different definitions, and we now apply that automatically. The AI can do it, and really, there's some interesting conversations having for clients when they go, these things they use class as control no longer are using that framework. Translation, yeah, absolutely. So we know, for those that have done a lot of work in critical risk, um, there's a lot of documentation all over the place. A lot of it's very technical, but how do we package that up into some way that the frontline worker understands? That's certainly something that it can do, and I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. Now, is anyone, we need an expanded conversation on that, Gary? Or what is it? All models are guides or something like that. And hopefully no one's organization or no one in the context of critical trial management are using AI as this. And I remember when working with these guys on this platform that we utilize, this is one of the toll gates we had in, there's always a human endorsement, always a human toll gate for everything it produces and each stage it produces. But we know a lot of our clients would say, well, can you just let me press the button and just give me the full end-to-end management system and we're done. And we know that's not helpful. Single source of truth. I think that's yeah, Cameron, absolutely, because AI can be wrong. Yeah, we absolutely need that oversight, and there's probably a few things we could riff off that, but maybe at the end we can do. And we know certainly in the Queensland mining legislative context, consultation with subject matter experts is a key pillar of the risk assessment process or the risk management process and the safety management system process. And we cannot bypass that. Not at the moment anyway. Had an interesting conversation with the regulator around that. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mahesh, for using it for simplification of critical controls. Yes. Again, if you can give it the right parameters. Okay, so I mentioned about bow ties, and so there's some wording here. Thanks, Cameron. There's some wording here about bow ties. So yeah, context. So what what we used to do, and maybe we still are in some way, shapes, or forms, and I see this with one of our clients is a vanilla bow tie has gone past three different organizations. So let's say falling from height is the unwanted event. And it's vanilla, it's generic. Look, it's usable, it passes the test, but there's no context, or right sizing, to use Gary's term. There's no context of that risk specific to the business. And now we have the ability of, and we used to do this manually, but now we can do this, where we can say, okay, well, here is the risk. Here is the context about my business. This is what I do. This is the task, the activities. Here's all our operating areas. Here's the equipment we use. Here's our incident history. You can give it all of that. And now we can create a context-derived bow tie or risk assessment. It doesn't have to be bow tie, risk assessment for our business. We give it the structure. So just don't go and create a bow tie because then, and that's as much as we give it, because then it can give us whatever it thinks a bow tie needs to look like. And if we have some frameworks or if we've done some training, we can give it the structure of what it needs to look like. And the structure, it's not just so much that, well, I want it, the visual, what it looks like, but the structure in terms of the methodology it deploys to produce the bow tie. Force format, this is what we just talked about. Okay, give me a bow tie, and then I remember some people might have done this, play around with ChatGPT when it was first there. Okay, give me a bow tie on this, and it creates these images which don't even look like a thing, and you're just like, how did you come up with that as a picture? So now we can really give it some better, stronger guidance on that and the quality check. And this is interesting, isn't it? And I'm sure some people on the line have been doing this. So you'll give it the task, it'll go off and do it, and then you go, okay, go back and check your work, and potentially it will find some things. And so what you've got here is an example of a prompt. So for those that haven't used AI before, you might have heard of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever these things are. You can get them on the phone now. So it all of it has like a little, a chat box. This could be an example of something you could put in the chat box there. And certainly, the more context you can give it, the more you can deal with these things, the better the outcome. We've got Gary, assumptions good, but also expectations. Thank you, Brett. No, I used to test AI to define a bow tie. However, I needed to set some criteria because it gave some information with opportunity, for instance, causes that were not causes, but controls. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, mate. And won't unpack that one now, but certainly, I've been talking to a few people in this space. Is what happens? I assume a lot of us on the line, we have 10, 15, 20, 30 years of experience. Maybe someone on here has got more grey hair than me, might have more. If we're now going to outsource to AI all of these learnings, then who's going to be the toll gate of that experience base in the next 10 years or 20 years? Don't know. That could be an interesting one. Cameron, reading for sense, often the chat response looks almost totally correct, but isn't. Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen some stuff. I've seen some AI produce stuff in critical risk, and I'm like, whoa. Anyway, so we talked about bow ties. Yep. So another thing is critical control performance standards. Quick yes, no. Has anyone used AI to produce a critical control performance standard? Just a quick yes or no. Yes, Steve A. Brad, yes. Andrew, no. Cameron, no. And no. Linda, in part. Gary, yes, but needs a close eye on output, 100%. P. Giles, I'm going to guess that's Paul. Mahesh, no. Paul is the starting point. Cool. All right. So there's a few of us there, and I know those that haven't used AI, then obviously it's a no. So we know, and one of my frustrations being a critical risk management purist is a lot of organizations don't have critical control performance standards. And so layman's terms, what are they? It's the standard we expect of this critical control for the life of the critical control. So we expect it to be this, and then we can set up basically assurance or audit strategies against that standard. So again, if following what we know, if we can give it some guardrails, then we can use AI in the right way to help it produce a performance standard. And so we have a template, and I've worked with the guys. A template which has a number of elements, and these are some of the key elements that, in our view, are important and must be included. So instead of just saying, hey, create a performance standard and it'll give you whatever it'll give you, we can give it some rules, and we have some rules built in to say, okay, well, here's the thing that must be included, and here's some criteria, for the algorithm to understand. So measurable criteria. What constitutes a pass and fail when we both for its standard just in its way of working, but then if we go out and do assurance. So these types of things. So I'm not going to go into this one a little further than this. You get the picture. Brad, it struggles when you're trying to control two risks within the same critical control. Yes, mate. Still working on that one. I've got to come back to you. All right, and then verifications. So verifications. So for those not familiar with that term, that's essentially I'll use the term the checklist. So what's the checklist we give someone when they go out and check on or audit a critical control? And we know that verifications are pretty important. And if we can design them well, then it gives us a better chance of success in ensuring this critical control is going to be in there for the life of the critical control. Quick pop before I keep rambling. Quick poll on the right. What are people seeing as issues or the problem with verifications at the moment? If you could choose one of those or more than one, what are you seeing as a pain point or an issue, or what have you seen in your experience around critical control verifications or critical control audits, where we see a lot of problems being arisen? I'll put it that way. I'll just give everyone sort of 15 seconds, see if any of those really make sense. Steve, wrong thing verified, not specific enough. Yes. Andrew, lack of form process, assume supervisor. Yeah, that's a good one. Overall systems-based management. Brad, yeah, gotcha. I know where you're heading with that. Anyone else seeing some issues there around verifications? Gary, from systems point of view, we're verifying that we need both. Yes. And Max, sampling plan to cover many locations. Yeah, certainly for you guys. Christian, no free text on verified captured learnings insights. I like that one, Christian. I've been thinking of that more recently, mate. Thank you. Camera chicken flick, no action after failure. Yeah. All right. We're seeing lots of the same. And to me, what when I run the training on critical risk, my purest opinion is the verification needs to be written as a mini work instruction, as in answering as many of these as possible. Obviously, the work instruction might answer the who and the frequency. The system can do that. But okay, what is the definition of pass fail? Because we all do pass fail or yes no, but are we clear on what the criteria is? Is absolutely key evidence. So using the AI and giving again the rule sets, it can then produce us verification strategy and a verification program that meets all of this criteria and helps us get away from some of these pain points that we've been describing. All right. Brad, common set of Jira-based action system track performance standard verification, build accountability, cross-functional response. Hey, that's a good one. Thanks, Brad. So then we've got, okay, it can create content, but also can maintain quality and then assure it. So I'm going to guess Is anyone using it? Is anyone using AI for data crunching, looking across data from quality perspective or large buckets of data? Anyone doing that? Brad, I'm, pretty not surprised there. Anyone else doing some stuff like that? Mightn't just be in relation to critical risk. It could be to if you've got lots of different data points. Gary, yes, it's good in this respect. Anyone else? Okay, I'll just keep an eye on the chat. So look, here's some examples. Yep. Duplication. Imagine if you've got a whole bunch of data. It can do these things. Like I mentioned before, so quality principles. So I can take an organization's, okay, give me your critical controls. Okay, here's my list. Apply the algorithms that we built around what's a control, the support activity monitoring activity, what are all of the requirements that pass the test to be a critical control, and then we can spit something out straight away. And also making sure, for example, our bow ties are structured that it's a loss of control event in the middle, as an example. So if you're not using it, for those that aren't using it yet, now again, obviously there can be some data sensitivity things and where can your data go to, but absolutely to look at large buckets of data is really, really helpful. Certainly trending reporting, really, really helpful in that space. All right. So which one has people seen the most of this? So the risk of generic AI, just meaning, it's general, generic. You give it what you can, but it can still do some stuff independent of you. Has anyone seen one of these really, really overrepresented as an issue? Really keen to get everyone's feedback on that. What have got, Cameron? Skinner, hallucination. Yes, hallucination, confident, but completely wrong output that looks really, really good. That is a concerning one, actually, and certainly if it gives a really good output, but the person who's reviewing the output doesn't know any different, that's pretty scary. Andrew, hallucinations in the early days, but less so now with ChatGPT. Yeah, nice, thanks, Andrew. And partly wrong, Cameron. I don't know if anyone's done this. Different outputs per user. Okay, person A go and create a bow tie. Person B go and create a bow tie. Give it the same data, and it's potentially significantly different. Brad, change shift over time requires canary prompts. Yes, and the guys talk about this change drift, and certainly within the platform they have, it's almost a daily checking against drift. Gary, tighter prompts help with hallucination, Cameron, different per agent. Yeah, so I guess in layman's speak, if I'm using Claude or if I'm using ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever the other ones are, and we ask it the same thing, can we get different outputs? And maybe it's not one that's so common, but is really useful as well, traceability. Yep. So if people are just magically producing this high volume of stuff, where did it come from? How did it get here? Can we show the bouncing ball, follow the bouncing ball to arrive at where we arrive, or could someone else do that? And that can certainly be pretty scary. I mean, Steve A, you talked about document management as an example. If we get AI to automate all of these things, hopefully we're keeping traceability on the different changes as an example. Traceability, yeah, there you go. Or skipping to the end. Yeah, that's a good one. Cameron asked for references. Yeah, absolutely. Data governance, where the input go, who can see it? Unclear. That's cool. And change risk. All right, so we've got those ones as well. And so I asked the guys, look, so if people don't have a platform, don't want to purchase a platform, what could they do to get started in this space, even if they're just using a chat GPT or things like that? And so they've dropped these four things in here. And we talked about this one. We can see some issues if we don't apply this. So it's a drafting with a human approval. And that could be going back and forth. Okay, draft. Okay, what do you think? And then, okay, I like this, don't like this, change this, blah, blah, blah. And that can be draft again. And then it could also do a quality assurance at the end if you give it the check for all of these things. Is there a definition list? And I'm going to guess most organizations have glossary of terms or definitions. So potentially this can help with the variability, can't it? If we have this one distinct list of definitions and everyone uses it or points to this, then that can help. Okay, so IT security, not my forte, but I know that a lot of organizations, I'm sure all of you, if you work for someone, there's probably some rules around that. I think, Brad, you already mentioned about why your organization internally can't use AI. And there's some risk there. Don't put in sensitive information because, as I understand it, once it's out there, it's gone. And I don't know where it goes, but magic of AI will take it somewhere. And always we need to have the audit trail. And I think this comes back to well with the human toll gates. So then we can follow this to always ensure that there is someone who reviews and approves that. Is there any other, you've got a little bit of time, is there any other guardrails or guidance people can think of if someone's just going to get in and start using AI? Is there another rule set or something that people would recommend in this space? That's probably a good question because all of us have been using it lots of different ways. I'm keen to learn as well. Anyone else got um, this is what we do, or make sure you do this as part of this? Maybe give 15 seconds, see if there's any other tips, strategies. Yes, that's a good one, mate. I don't know. I don't know. We need some lawyers on that. Brad, canary prompts to reset memory drain. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Brad. Gary, that's again, good one. I don't know. AI and legal and safety. That could be an interesting one, mate. Maybe you can run a webinar on that. Um, okay. And so I think we saw one of the pain points too. Okay, well, what if you've got someone really, really good and applies all of these rule sets and has good outcomes and traceability? But then we say, okay, well, why can't more than one person do it? Well, okay, well, you two now do it. Okay, person A and person B. And they do it, or someone else has a go and they get a completely different outcome. Then what happens? How do we scale? Does it create friction? Or is there a reversion to the old ways? And I know I've done a few times. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it the old way because I've gone round and round in circles, as an example. And if we get things on scale, what do we got here? Challenge getting 50 supervisors, 200 controls, still want to get there, 6 months, 12 months later. And we've got change drift and all of those aspects as well. And lots of people coming out and lots of changes. So the scale as well. So yeah, so what good looks like, again, we've talked about these. And what I'm going to show now is just an example of what it can look like with, I know a few people have seen this, but what it can look like into won't say a system platform, let's say using and corralling the AI, applying all of these rule sets, applying all of these aspects here. So I'm just going to escape out here. I'm going to share my screen over here, not that one. It is in the Google space here. Okay. So what I'm going to just quickly show in 5 minutes or less is an example of what an AI platform or AI derived platform that addresses all information security, has all of the rules and algorithms built within it, what it could look like, an example of what it can look like, and how it can save you time and also increase the quality. So this here is an example of a bow tie, bow tie into critical performance standard journey. So any bow tie, remember how I talked about context? So instead of me just doing a a generic bow tie on loss of control of lifting. So let's say, failure of cranes and lifting. If we can give it the context of jurisdiction, industry potentially, then and other geographic regions, then this particular platform can go out as part of the synthesis of the bow tie, go out and check the incident history related to that. It can check guidance documents, standards, all of those things, and bring that back in to as part of the consideration of in the synthesis of the bow tie. If I have, I don't think it's here, but before I got to this particular view, there was an area here where I could upload all of my existing information. So if I already have bow ties or risk assessments or standards, whatever I have within my business related to the management of this risk, I can update it and attach it, and then we'll use that as an information source as well. Or if I, standard safety people, if I had a copy of a bow tie from somewhere else as well, I could also have that as an attachment. It'll crunch all that information and then help with scoping, because we know every bow tie needs a scope. I'm not going to go through this, but it'll do a first pass, and then I can drag and drop, move things in and around, or go, hey, you've missed this, add this in. And whatever here, again, this is helping set the context for the scope of the bow tie and what's returned, and different jurisdiction aspects as well. I'm not going to click this button because it takes about 60 seconds. But if I click that button, it would then go through to produce a bow tie. And remember how I talked about the algorithms in terms of rules? So for example, what's a support activity and a verification activity, as an example? Instead of us having to sit in a room and I've done this, okay, well, here's the framework. Let's now look at certified lift here. This is a control activity, is a verification activity. It applies all of those rule sets automatically, and puts everything into the space. It does make sure, does this meet the definition of what needs to be in the center of a bow tie? Applies, if we have causes, we know causes can't be a failure of control. We don't want them to be too broad and generic. We want them to go a little bit more detailed, but not too detailed. You're right in the weeds, as an example. Also, critical controls. So give it the definition of critical control. It can also do some control effectiveness weighting as well. You might have heard of those terms, control effectiveness scoring. It can do some automated, let's say semi-quantitative scoring for what a critical control is. And we could set a threshold for, controls that pass this threshold are greater than whatever that, 25 as an example. Then to show that. I think you can, Gary. I think you can. I need to check with the guys. So all of that view as an example, I'm just letting someone back in. Okay. Again, then over on the right-hand side, with our mitigating things, classifications and things like that. Sorry if my internet's going in and out. I'm just getting some prompts here. All right. So let's say you can get it to there. Again, what used to take me, let's say me probably 2.5 days to do, because all of these controls, don't forget, can come from, it's going to look external. So what has industry got? And a standard that you might yet have, but also internal. What have we currently got in our safety management system? And that's a mixture. So what you see here on the controls is a hybrid combination of that. And then as part of going through the bow tie, we can say, well, look, rest of industry has this particular thing. Do you want to accept this into your management system or not in relation to this risk? Or not. So you can do that to then distill it down to what works for you. Then let's say you get to, sorry, not that one. Got the heading up the top here. Just need to move people down. Here we go. Let's say we've done all that. We signed it all off. Now we've got our list of critical controls down the left-hand side. The next journey is to then go and create critical control performance standards, which manually, this is what we talked about before, manually could take a bit of time. We have to go through, okay, tell me everything about this critical control, synthesize it, etc. I can start. Let me just go here. This one here. I can essentially go through, upload everything I have within my business or potentially external associated with this critical control, whatever this might be. Then click the little AI suggest requirements, and then it can then produce, I've just gone to a different one. It can then produce all of those different details against all the parameters based on that. And again, it needs a human tollgate. So even back on the bow tie, sorry to move around, all of these are editable, changeable. They've all got human tollgates. And so, for example, here you come in and change it. So I can do all of the part ones, the failure modes, what do we talk about? Trigger action responses. Then we talked about, someone mentioned before, so I can then even draft the verification. So who checks what by when, what does good look like, with some starting points in terms of frequency and role, again with human toll gates. What I would say for this platform, and I've had to dial this back, is it does get very aggressive on frequency. So like doing this once a month by the listing supervisor, that's too much. And so there still is, it needs that human tollgate to go, actually, that doesn't make sense in terms of level of frequency. So we're still playing around with that. Then also what the guys are building out, no, I'll talk about that shortly. Then obviously you can extract everything. And one of the things, this is an example where the AI can do some things that maybe never did before. A worker infographic. And if I press that, it can probably again take 60 seconds, but I pressed it previously. So this is where we translate the technical to the frontline. Well, what does a critical control performance standard mean for a frontline worker? Again, uploading it and letting it do the things. You know, who knows? Old days, this might have taken someone half a day to do, and they still didn't do it well. Now we can leverage off the power of the AI to do this. As an example. So that's probably all I'm going to talk about there. Again, yeah, just want to give you an example of some where things can get to. Also, which is going to then be interesting here, is when you have things at scale. So let's say you've got a common critical control across multiple bow ties and have assurance happening on that. How do you then start to consider that and monitor that and its returning of value? Also, which is pretty interesting, which we're going to deploy soon, is what about if we then, can we look at scale? Let's say here, I'll go down here. I like to just talk about this stuff anyway. So let's say, for example, you've got a training coordinator, 1 hour to do this for one critical control. What about then if I've got the training coordinator doing 50 things across the 200 critical controls? Can we see that a work management perspective? And then can we start to get smart on synergization? Can I then say to the AI, well, you know what? The training coordinator's got to check this thing, or has got to do all of these different checks. Can we now do some work into this cube of data around verification to do, let's reduce that load, combine some things where we are, where we can, but also make sure we're still moving back to the source. And that's actually where I think the AI can really give us some value at scale. Haven't solved that one yet, but again, we need to have everything within the same wheelhouse. Okay, where am I? I'm in the wrong one here. Let me go over here. Sorry, I'm stealing from another presentation this morning. All right, so I talked a bit about that. That's that Mountain MindGuard platform. The guys are doing a lot of work in that space. Now it's back to everyone. I'll come back to that, Steve. So, round the grounds. What's a key learning, a key takeaway, a key idea? What do people think? Got a few people on the line. So throw something in the chat. We've covered a few things. So now I've got 30 seconds. It's a lot. What do people have as a key idea, key takeaway, key learning? Before we sort of wrap up and then talk about some next steps. Really keen to get people's insights on this. Steve, have you got the development of boat? Mate, it's not that far away because the broad brush comes before the bow tie. And ironically, the broad brush is easy compared to the bow tie configuration. Have found using AI one of the most important pieces of the human tollgate to ensure that, yes, absolutely. Gary, quicker and cheaper than certain. Yes, mate. We'll talk about that one, another one. Brad, infographics for frontline workers. Yeah, 100%. Um, that is interesting. So I think any critical control, maybe critical control a control that has information around it. That'd be cool. Interesting to see what bow tie. I haven't played around bow ties as an infographic. Who knows what that could look like? Andrew, great summary, sensible rules, like the infographic ability. Thanks. Yeah, no worries, Andrew. Thank you. Um, yeah, it'd be interesting again to then apply infographics against the suite of data as well. Okay, we were talking about life-saving rules. Maybe we could actually use data to inform life-saving rules as opposed to ideas and copying and pasting. That'd be interesting. And can be time-saving analysis a large? Yeah, absolutely, mate. I can imagine if your role too, you're looking at a large data set, that could be interesting. Even if you de-identified it, just to then use this powerful tool, that could be good. What does other people have? Blinda, Barry, who else we got here? Mahesh, Paul, any other insights, observations, learnings? I think I've heard from everyone else. Do we have Cameron? What about yourself, Cameron? Anything in there? Right. Nothing to add. No worries. All right. So, um, yeah, I love you. Could also be used in cyber change to scaffold. Yeah, absolutely. So, look, the guys, if you want to have a crack at using the that critical risk AI platform, so the one I just showed you, um, the guys have a free license, and I actually encourage you, regardless if you want to purchase it or not, because essentially what you can do with that free for one unwanted event is you can then pretty much follow that same pathway. Let me get rid of that. Where you can take it, you can scope it out. You can start here, scope it, give it context, give it all your organizational information, and go all the way through to having critical controls and infographics for each of those. So if you want to have a crack at that, well, there's a QR code there. I think this is a hyperlink to somewhere, but I can't. I'll try and do it while we're having a chat. I'll send everyone an email anyway. But I encourage you to have a crack at that. Um, then also, this is nothing to do with AI, but I was talking to a few people on Friday night at Gary's event around this. Is at some point, if we're using it for critical risk management, we still need the internal, at least a person who has the ability to do the human toll gate on what is being produced. So you probably see me talk about this off and on. I've got a 2-day class which is coming up in Brisbane in August. I think we've got a few slots left. But if there's people like yourself or people within your business, I recommend you come in here and you understand the process end to end, what good looks like, to then potentially one, you can actually then go off and being more informed and how you want AI to do it, but also you or someone within your business has a toll gate on that. So I do have a link to that. I'll drop that in the chat now. So that is everything that I wanted to talk to. I'm keen to see if there's any questions or comments. How have I done time? Done really well on time today. Normally I waffle for a fair bit. Does anyone have a comment? Another comment or a question? I'll just put that masterclass thing in the chat. If you're anything you're curious about, I can go back and look inside that platform. Barry, doing the course in Mackay? Not yet, mate. But if there was a need, sometimes I do virtual so people can dial in. It's not as user friendly. Yeah, I know it's short notice too. But if you are able to make it to Brisbane, I'll probably do another one before the end of the year. Or if you have a pool of people, then I could probably work something out. Andrew, any ideas how to simplify the CCM language, which can be confusing to workers and supervisors? Yeah, that's a good one, mate. Um, what I like, well, I think about a few things, and I'll just give you my spin on whether it's true or not. Is whatever the language is, it needs to be consistent from top to bottom, left to right, all of that. The worst thing we can do is have different terms for different things, and then we're none, we're even worse than where we were at the start. Um, what I like about the energy-based safety, even though it's not new, but if you guys have seen some of the stuff for energy-based safety is in terms of, for example, hazard identification, they've got the energy wheel and there's like 8 master categories of hazards. So that's just and the hazards are all, particular, what is it? Can't remember the different energy sources off the top of my head, but one I think is mechanical, machinery or something, or moving. So I've seen that and I thought that's actually really powerful because top to bottom, everyone can line up with that categorization. Um, Same as controls, critical controls, whatever we want to call it. I mean, critical controls can work if we keep it simple in terms of what a critical control means. I mean, we're not going to go and tell the frontline all the different definitions of critical control and it consists of all of these things. Maybe it's just the most important control. Um, yeah, I think consistency of the terms. And also actually where I was talking to business last week is if the organization currently has a whole language around things associated with critical risk and it brings in a new framework or an upgraded framework that conflicts with the old one, or it's there or thereabouts, but they want to use a new one, then potentially there's some change management to say, well, you know what, let's just keep using our existing terms and just expand the definition to include the new. I don't know, that's just me off the cuff, mate. Don't know if other people have some other on that. Gary, energy theory is quite old, but worth revisiting it. Mainland safety, there are non-energy hazards control. Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen some people, I saw someone on LinkedIn have a bit of a rant on this one, saying it's nothing, nothing new. What I've done is I've integrated energy-based safety in traditional critical control management. And I actually did a workshop, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where I also integrated critical steps management into critical risk management. So rather than just dropping one and going to another one, I'm looking to see how can we just implement it as part of our end-to-end fatality prevention framework. Any other questions, comments? Just while I'm talking about, so the AI platform, which I've showed you what the guys are building out, which is pretty cool because I've talked about critical risk AI. Okay, someone stop the A companion. All right, I'll just do that. Hopefully that's okay. Or if whoever clicked that, click it again, and I'll just confirm. It just helps me with the summary. You guys will get a summary as well. This is also where AI can help as well. So rather than it doing one thing, so what the guys have built, they've built out incident reporting and investigation end to end. So, take an ICAM, it does all of that end to end, like we've just shown. We talked about bow ties and critical controls. They now have constructed, it's just about to be released, safety management systems. So then all of these 3 things can talk to each other in real time. So again, I think that's where AI can really help. It can do more than just one thing. And I'm pretty excited about that. And then it's easy to put an assurance skin on top of that. I think they've got the field leadership stuff already built out, which is, basically a form builder. Whatever the thing is you want to check, build out a form. And we want it to all be talking to all of this as well. And then risk assessments. And I think, Paul, you might have mentioned about JSAs and all that. So that's pretty cool to come. What industries are you doing CM well in the AI space? Gary, you've mentioned rail. I'm open. Are other people seeing some stuff there in terms of industries? What I'm seeing in mining, because I know that working with these guys, we're doing a fair bit of work in mining. Is there are some, I think the big players are doing things in-house. So let's say the BHPs of the world, they do their own in-house AI. I don't know if anyone on here is working for BHP, doing their own internal stuff. So we can't exactly see too much of what's happening in that space. Um, I feel like where I've seen some pretty cool stuff is the smaller players who are resource constrained and they have no option but to use AI, have done some pretty well, some pretty good stuff. I know Brad Matthews on here. I think you've done pretty good stuff, mate, with even though you can't really use AI, but I think your thinking's pretty good. Um, yeah, that's my first pass on it. Um, and actually, what I am doing, shameless plug, but I mentioned this on Friday night too. In November, we're doing a 1 day safety forum in Brisbane where I'm getting people from industry, not as in, from companies who are doing stuff in safety to come and talk about 15-minute slots. What are they doing in relation to all of these different things? What are they learn? What can we away? So absolutely in that event, I'm going to have some people who are using AI and applying AI because I think that's going to be pretty powerful. So that's in November. Hopefully, I'll send some stuff out about that too. All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, I don't want to waste people's times. QR code. Yes, I can. Absolutely. There it is. Sorry, I think that link does. I thought that link does go somewhere, but it doesn't. There's a link up. Absolutely. So for those that need to go, thank you for joining. Copy of the slides, copy of this recording will be socialized. We're going to top and tail this. So you'll get a link to that. Keep an eye out. Hopefully it doesn't go to spam because it comes from my email system. I'll put in the link to this as well as the link to the training session in there as well. So if you need to go, thank you. Thanks for your time. For those that want to stay on the line, you absolutely can. We can unmute and we can sort of riff off whatever questions, comments you might want to have. I don't have to just do screen share because I'm keen to explore this further because I'm keen to learn more as well. No worries, Cameron. No worries, Paul. Yes, we'll do. Yes, thanks, Belinda. Thanks, GM. Yes, mate. We'll catch up again. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Mahesh. All right. If anyone wants to talk, you can just unmute.